She wore my wedding dress before I ever had the chance. Technically, it wasn't mine yet, but I picked it. I tried it on. I stood in front of that mirror with tears in my eyes, and I remember whispering, "This is the one." 2 weeks later, I saw her in it, in my dress, walking down the aisle, to my ex-fiancé. The worst part, she looked radiant, like she'd never known betrayal in her life. Her name is Camille, my younger sister, the golden one. People say we look alike, but no one ever mistook us for equals. She was the kind of girl who got picked first by coaches, by boys, by fate. I was the one who got invited out of obligation. Growing up, I always thought that one day I'd have my moment, that life would even out, that love would choose me too. Instead, Camille married Owen, the man who once looked at me like I was everything. And I wasn't even invited to the wedding. They said it would be too painful for everyone. Not just for me, apparently. So I watched it unfold on Instagram, frame by frame, my dress, my man, my sister, all smiling. But this isn't just a story about a stolen fiancé or a dress. This is about what came after. Because while she was honeymooning in Santorini, I was nursing my heartbreak in a rented room above a garage. And that's where it happened. That's where he showed up. Not Owen, not some rebound. Him. And from the moment he walked in, nothing about my life would ever be normal again. The place I'd rented was a shabby converted studio above a retired couple's garage. I found it on Craigslist the day after Camille's wedding in a fog of shame and vodka. The walls were thin, the bathroom smelled like old pipes, and the only thing that worked consistently was the ceiling fan, which clicked with every rotation like it was ticking off the seconds of my failure. I wasn't supposed to be there long, just until I got back on my feet, whatever that meant. Mom told the family I was taking some space for healing, but they didn't ask what from. Camille had already rewritten the story. According to her, Owen and I never really clicked and the breakup was mutual. Funny how memory works when you're the one who wins. 3 weeks into my self-imposed exile, I heard footsteps on the stairs, heavy rushed. I thought maybe my landlord was coming to yell about the noise. Or worse, one of Camille's friends trying to drop off a passive-aggressive peace offering. But when I opened the door, it was Connor. Connor Hayes. Owen's best friend. The best man at the wedding. The one who used to call me the lucky one because, in his words, Owen's not the easiest guy to crack. We hadn't spoken since the breakup. I figured he'd picked sides like everyone else. "Sorry," he said, blinking. Didn't expect anyone to answer. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. His shirt was wrinkled and there was a faint bruise blooming under one eye. "You're not Owen." "Definitely not." He exhaled, relieved. Then he laughed. It was short, bitter. "I was supposed to be crashing here, temporarily. You and me both." We stared at each other, two ghosts in the wrong place. Then wordlessly, I stepped aside and let him in. We didn't say much that first night. He took the armchair, I took the bed. Neither of us slept. The next morning, I found him making coffee with the one working burner. He handed me a chipped mug and said I heard about what happened. "You okay?" It was the first time anyone had asked me that. I didn't answer right away, just sipped, letting the warmth spread through the numb. "You know they're not happy, right?" he added. "Camille and Owen. It's not all filtered sunsets and pasta in Tuscany." I looked at him then, really looked. His jaw was clenched, not with jealousy, with something darker. "You were in love with her," I said quietly. He flinched like I'd struck him. "Not was," he said. And just like that, the silence between us grew teeth. I wish I could say I hesitated, that I thought about Camille, about Owen, about the million invisible threads connecting all of us in this twisted web of betrayal. But the truth, when Connor kissed me, I kissed him back. It wasn't soft or slow. It was angry, desperate, starved, like two people trying to swallow their grief before it swallowed them. It happened 3 nights after he moved in. We were sharing cheap takeout on the floor knees, brushing wine bottle between us. He was telling me about the night before the wedding, how Owen had gotten drunk and confessed he wasn't sure he loved Camille, how Connor had wanted to tell someone, me, but he didn't. He said he was afraid. Of what? Of how much I wanted to protect you, even then. I looked up. He was already watching me. And then it happened. His hand brushed my knee. My breath caught. I didn't move away. He leaned in, slowly testing the air between us, waiting for me to flinch. I didn't. Our lips touched just barely, and for a moment I thought maybe it would stop there. A line drawn in sand. But then he kissed me harder, like the dam had broken. Like he needed it the way people need air or absolution. And I let him, because in that moment I wasn't thinking about Camille in her perfect white dress or Owen's cold-clipped goodbye. I wasn't thinking about what was right or wrong. I was thinking about how Connor's hands felt in my hair, how his mouth tasted like wine and regret, how good it felt to finally be wanted again. We didn't go all the way. Not that night. But we crossed something that couldn't be undone. Later, as we lay side by side on the narrow mattress, his hand resting just inches from mine, he whispered, "She was never supposed to marry him." I stared at the ceiling fan, watching it spin like the thoughts in my head. I wasn't supposed to be here either. He turned toward me. Maybe we both ended up exactly where we were meant to. I didn't answer, because if I did, I'd have to admit something I wasn't ready to say out loud. That for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a backup plan. I felt like the secret, and secrets have power. The thing about secrets is they always start small, soft, like a whisper no one hears but you. At first it was innocent or close enough. Late nights, shared coffee, jokes we didn't tell anyone else. Connor started sleeping on the floor less and in my bed more. We told ourselves it was just comfort, just the way broken people heal. But healing doesn't taste like guilt. It tastes like adrenaline, like sweat on someone else's skin, like a thrill you know you'll pay for later. 'Cause that's what it became us. A transaction of hurt. I told myself it didn't count as betrayal. Camille had already taken the first swing. She stole Owen, lied about how it happened, made herself the victim while I disappeared from the narrative. So I deserved something, didn't I? That's what I whispered to myself the night Connor pulled me into his lap and said, "Do you think she knows what she gave up?" I kissed him before I could answer. But the truth? I wasn't sure who he meant, Camille or me. It wasn't just about her anymore. Not really. It was about what we were building in that tiny, rented space. We made up our own rules, laughed at our own jokes, made plans for weekends that never came. It was fragile, temporary, but it was ours. Until the night Camille called. I hadn't heard her voice in over a month. Not since the wedding. It was just after midnight. Connor was in the shower. My phone lit up her name like a ghost in the dark. I shouldn't have answered. But I did. "Hey," she said, her voice trembling. "I know it's late, but can I talk to you?" I sat up, my throat dry. "What do you want, Camille?" A pause. "He's cheating on me," she said quietly. "I think Owen's cheating on me." My heart stuttered. She started crying. "I don't know what I did wrong," she whispered. I thought you'd understand." I didn't say anything. Not because I couldn't, but because at that moment Connor walked out of the bathroom, wet hair towel slung, low eyes locking on mine with a question. I looked away. Because that was the first time I realized something terrible. I didn't feel sorry for her. I felt satisfied. The next morning I sat at the kitchen counter staring at my phone, Camille's voice echoing in my ears. "I thought you'd understand." Understand what? How it feels to be discarded. Lied to, made to feel like the spare part someone reaches for when the real one breaks. Connor slid a plate of eggs in front of me and kissed my cheek like everything was normal. Like we weren't living in a house built out of broken promises. "She okay?" he asked, nodding toward my phone. I didn't look at him. No, she'll survive. I wanted to tell him that wasn't the point. That it wasn't about whether Camille would survive. It was about me. For once, someone had turned to me for comfort. Me, not her. Me, the forgotten sister. The consolation prize. And I had a choice. I could finally tell Camille the truth that Owen had whispered in my ear first. That he bought the ring with me in mind. That I watched her walk down the aisle in a dress I'd picked out while sitting in a chair meant for the bride's sister. Or worse. I could tell her that while she cried over Owen's affair, I was still finding Connor's shirt on my bedroom floor. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I typed, "You didn't do anything wrong," and hit send. Connor wrapped his arms around me from behind. "You're doing the right thing." I turned my head slightly. "Am I?" He didn't answer. That afternoon, we left the house for the first time in days, just to breathe different air. We walked through the park, fingers brushing but not holding, pretending we were just roommates, just friends. I spotted Camille across the street. She was sitting on a bench alone, face-pale, sunglasses hiding her tears. I froze. Connor followed my gaze. "You want to go talk to her?" I shook my head. "Maybe I should," he said too quietly. That's when it hit me. He hadn't stopped loving her. I was a reprieve, a pause button on pain, a place to rest while the storm passed. I took a step back. "Do you still want her?" I asked. His face gave the answer before his mouth did. "I don't know," he said. And just like that, everything cracked. Not loudly, not all at once. But it started. That was the last day we touched each other like we meant it. The shift was subtle at first. Connor started leaving earlier, coming home later. He said he was working more shifts, picking up projects, helping a friend move. Normal things. innocent if you didn't know better. But I did know better. I knew the way someone's voice sounds when they're trying to sound casual. I knew the nervous glance at their phone, the change in cologne, the way the air around them starts to feel colder even when they're smiling. I knew all of it because I'd lived it. I'd been the woman on the other side of those excuses once before. So when he said I'll be back late tonight, I just nodded. I didn't ask where. But the moment the door shut behind him, I grabbed my keys. I didn't plan to follow him, but I did. I kept my headlights low, parked a street away when he pulled up to a brownstone in a neighborhood too nice for any of his friends. I waited, watched him get out, straighten his jacket, walk up the steps like he belonged there. The porch light flicked on, and then she opened the door. Camille! Her hair was up in that effortless bun she always wore when she was pretending not to care. She was barefoot, wearing Owen's college hoodie. She hugged Connor like it was the most natural thing in the world. I couldn't breathe. He hadn't just gone back to her. He'd never really left. I sat in the car for what felt like hours, long after they went inside, long after the front light turned off. I thought about knocking. I thought about burning the whole house down. Instead, I drove home, hands numb on the wheel, heart silent in my chest. He came back around 2 a.m. I was awake pretending to sleep. He slipped into bed beside me like nothing had happened. Like he didn't still smell like her shampoo. I missed you, he whispered. I didn't answer, but a part of me did something far worse. A part of me smiled, because if he could lie to me that easily, then I could lie too. And I already knew exactly how. The next morning, I made coffee like always. Eggs toast a smile I didn't feel. Connor kissed me on the forehead and told me he had to run out again, something about helping his cousin move. I said, take your time, and I meant it. Because while he was out playing house with Camille, I was making calls. You see, I wasn't always the quiet one. Before Owen, before the betrayal, I was sharp, hungry. I'd built a startup from nothing in college before it crashed and burned in the chaos of the engagement. Before I got labeled unstable and jealous and obsessed, but I still had the bones and the brain. And something far more dangerous now. Motivation. I started small. I pulled the scraps of my business back out of storage branding, concepts, prototypes. Things Camille had once called a cute little side thing. Then I called Travis Green. He used to be a VC who sniffed around me before I got engaged. He wasn't interested in love stories, only numbers. But numbers I had. By the time Connor got home that night, sweaty and tired, I had 3 investor meetings lined up and a stack of sketches on the table. What's all this, he asked. I smiled, my future. He blinked. Are you going back to your startup? I never left, I just paused. He gave me a strange look, one I couldn't read. That's great, he said slowly. I mean, you sure you're up for it after everything? I tilted my head. You mean after being your emotional crutch? He flinched, barely, but I saw it. We didn't talk much the rest of the night. But something had shifted. He could sense it. I was done waiting, done playing backup. While Camille cried into his chest and Owen drank himself into oblivion, I would rebuild, not out of bitterness, out of clarity. Because if I couldn't have love, I'd take power, and I'd never apologize for it. It was at a hotel bar downtown 2 weeks after I secured my first round of funding. Travis had set up a pitch event. Polished investors in tailored suits clinking glasses of overpriced scotch. I wore a navy dress that Camille once said made me look too serious. That night I wore it like armor. I was reviewing my notes when I saw him. Owen, hair longer shirt, wrinkled eyes dull around the edges. He looked like someone who'd stopped sleeping but hadn't admitted it yet. He hadn't seen me. He was too busy staring into a glass of whiskey, like it owed him answers. I should have walked away, but I didn't. Funny running into you here, I said, tone light, like we weren't 2 ghosts colliding in a room built for the living. He turned. I watched recognition spread across his face in slow, painful waves. God, he muttered, you look different. Successful, I corrected. The word you're looking for is successful. He almost laughed. You're presenting tonight. I raised an eyebrow. Why you planning to invest? No, he said, I didn't think I'd see you again. That seems to be a pattern with you. He winced. There was silence then, heavy with all the things neither of us had said, not during the breakup, not after the wedding, not even when Camille posted their matching tattoos like a badge of honor. Then he looked me dead in the eye and said, she's not who I thought she was. I sipped my drink. None of us are. He reached for my hand gently like we hadn't shattered each other once already. I made a mistake. I pulled back. Yes, you did. And then I stood. Don't worry, I added. You're not the first man to confuse a mirror for a window. He blinked, confused. You thought Camille was your future. She was just your reflection. I walked away before he could respond. That night, I closed a $500K deal with a San Francisco firm. But that wasn't the highlight. The real win, Owen watched the whole thing, and for the first time ever, he saw me. 3 months later, my startup Vanta officially launched. A women-led tech platform aimed at helping female founders gain visibility in male-dominated spaces. The party was at a rooftop lounge downtown. Stringlight's jazz trio curated guest list. The kind of event Camille used to beg me to sneak her into when we were younger. I didn't invite her. She came anyway. Wearing red. Not just any red, our mother's red, the silk wrap dress Mom wore the night she left Dad. Camille had always loved dramatics. That night, she outdid herself. She walked in like the room belonged to her. And for a second it did. People stared, men smiled, investors whispered. I sipped my drink and kept my face still. She made her way over slowly, like a cat circling a mouse it wasn't sure whether to eat or play with. Nice party, she said, looking around. Didn't think you were the rooftop type. I became a lot of things you didn't think I was. She smirked. Guess I underestimated you. No, I said. You dismissed me. Big difference. She tilted her head, studying me like a new painting she wasn't sure she liked. Connor told me you two ended things. My throat tightened, but I didn't flinch. He was never mine to lose. She nodded slowly. You know he proposed last week. A beat. I took another sip of champagne and smiled. To you, or to the version of you he built out of guilt and nostalgia? Her face cracked just slightly. I came here to be civil, she snapped. To support your little business. I laughed. You came here to see if I still looked like the girl you used to beat at everything? Her eyes flashed. I never tried to beat you. I leaned in, my voice low and even. That's the problem, Camille. You didn't even have to try. She blinked, caught off guard. And then she said something I wasn't prepared for. Owen told me what he said to you at the bar. I raised an eyebrow. Did he also tell you about the night he kissed me before your wedding? Her lips parted. No sound came out. I stepped back, lifted my glass in a toast. To underestimated women, I said. And I turned and walked into the crowd. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Because I finally understood something that night. Camille may have won the battles, but I'd already won the war. It simmered in the way Camille started calling me again too often. Pretending to ask for advice, asking about investors. How did you pitch them? Did they take you seriously? What should I wear to a panel? She'd never cared about startups. She once said entrepreneur sounded like a fancy way to say unemployed. But now that I had traction, now that people whispered my name in rooms she couldn't enter, Camille wanted in. At first I played nice, sent her links, gave her talking points, smiled through the phone as she repeated my words back to me like they were her own. But then she crossed the line. She emailed Travis Green directly. Pitched him a lifestyle brand for high-end women's coaching retreats. He forwarded me the deck. Subject line, "Is this your sister?" I opened it with shaking hands. Every slide was a butchered version of my work, my copy, my graphics, my entire brand ethos. She'd copied it all, stripped of tech, dressed it up with pastel fonts and calligraphy. She called her company Marries. I called it theft. I didn't respond right away. I waited. Then the next time she called chirping like nothing had happened, I let her talk. Let her ramble about empowering women and using our sister story as marketing. When she finally paused, I said, I know what you did, Camille. Silence. I could hear her swallow. You think you can just repackage my pain into your brand? I continued. Make yourself the phoenix rising from ashes you didn't even burn. She started, No, you don't get to speak, not this time. She was quiet. Then she whispered, You're just mad because people finally see me now. I laughed, loud and sharp. No, Camille. I'm mad because you still think you need to steal my spotlight to be seen. Click. I hung up. And then I called my attorney. If Camille wanted to turn our story into content, she was about to learn what a real narrative arc looked like. And this time I was writing the ending. I sent the letter quietly. Professionally. No public theatrics. Just a direct legal warning that Rise bore substantial similarities to my copyrighted materials, and that continued usage would result in formal legal action. But Camille, she doesn't do quiet. 2 days later, she posted a sobbing selfie to Instagram captioned, When your own sister tries to destroy your dream, I guess some women don't support other women after all. Betrayal hurts, rise anyway. Family is complicated. It racked up 40,000 likes in a day. She followed it with a string of carefully curated reels, her journaling in bed, wiping away tears, hugging a puppy. There were violins in the background. Actual violins. She wasn't defending herself. She was casting herself. The heroine, the underdog, the wounded visionary fighting against her cruel, jealous sister. And her followers, they flooded my DMs with hate women like you are the reason we can't have nice things. Must be nice to ruin your sister's life from your rooftop office. I hope you choke on your empowerment. For a second, I panicked. The investor calls slowed. A podcast dropped me from their guest list. Camille had weaponized shame like she was born with it in her purse. But I had something she didn't. Receipts, screenshots, emails, original files with timestamps. I compiled them all and sent them to Travis, who quietly passed them along to every VC who mattered. No post, no rage, just quiet factual proof. Then I booked an interview with a respected business publication, not to slam her, just to talk about the rise of female founders and the importance of protecting intellectual property in a space that too often exploits women under the guise of sisterhood. I let my work speak louder than her tears. And when the article dropped, titled The Backup Plan Who Built an Empire, Camille went silent for 5 whole days. That was how I knew it had landed. She wasn't just losing the public. She was losing the narrative. And Camille, more than anyone knows, you can survive anything, except irrelevance. It was just after midnight when he knocked. I was reviewing my next quarter's projections, sipping lukewarm tea, wearing sweatpants and an old hoodie. I didn't even look up when I opened the door. But when I saw the box in his hand, small, velvet, absurd, I froze. "You've got to be kidding," I said. He stepped inside without waiting for permission, looking like someone who'd been rehearsing a speech for days, maybe weeks. "Just hear me out," he said. I shut the door, leaned against it. "You think a ring fixes this?" "No," he admitted, "but I want to start over. For real this time. No lies, no Camille. Just you and me." I studied him. The way his hair was still a little damp. How he shifted from foot to foot like a boy facing the principal. "Does she know you're here?" She found the ring in my drawer, asked if it was for her. "And what did you say?" I told her I didn't make that mistake twice. I almost laughed, but it wasn't funny. It was tragic. "You think I want the same leftovers Camille had?" I asked. He flinched. "I'm not here because I think you need me," he said quietly. "I'm here because I need you, and not for comfort, or to spite her. Because the night I kissed you in that apartment, it wasn't a mistake. It was the first thing in a long time that felt honest." For a moment, I wanted to believe him. I really did. But belief is expensive, and I've already paid too much. "Connor," I said softly, "I don't need a man who needs me. I need a man who sees me." He stared, and slowly it dawned on him. He never had. He set the ring down on my kitchen counter. "I'll leave it here, just in case." And then he walked out. I didn't cry. I didn't call Camille. I just poured my tea down the sink and smiled at the absurdity of it all. Because after everything, after betrayal, after stolen dresses, after rooftop speeches and Instagram feuds and lawyers, this was how it ended, with a ring in my kitchen. And the quiet realization that I no longer needed to be chosen. I'd chosen myself. She arrived like a final plot twist, perfect hair-polished nails, wearing the same perfume she wore when I was 13, and thought she smelled like money and safety. I hadn't spoken to her in over a year. She hadn't picked sides exactly. That was never her way. She floated between Camille and me like a diplomat, always neutral, always evasive. But I knew who she rooted for. She'd always rooted for Camille, the golden child, the performer, the one who smiled big and cried prettier. I was too sharp for her, too observant, too inconvenient. "Nice place," she said, stepping into my living room like she belonged there. "Thanks, you can leave now." She sighed. "Don't be childish." I poured coffee into a chipped mug, ignoring her. She sat down anyway. I saw the article. "You're really doing it." "I've been doing it." She nodded, scanning the room. "You know Camille's not doing well." "Is that why you're here?" I asked. "To collect pity on her behalf." She made a mistake. "No," I said, finally meeting her gaze. "You made a mistake. When you taught us only one of us could shine at a time." That landed. She blinked. "I didn't mean to." "But you did," I interrupted. "Every time you told me to let Camille have this one. Every time you said, 'Don't make a scene' when she stole something from me. You taught me to make myself smaller so she could feel big." Her hands trembled slightly. "You're not blameless," she said, trying to regain control. "You let men come between you. You let your resentment grow." "No," I said. "I let you convince me I didn't deserve the same things she did." Silence stretched between us. And then quietly she asked, "So what happens now?" I looked around, at the framed certificate from Forbes, at the stack of product samples on the shelf, at the ring still sitting on the counter like a ghost that hadn't figured out how to leave. "I move on," I said. She stared at me, not angry, not proud. Just stunned. Like she'd finally seen me for the first time. When she left, she didn't hug me. But she looked back at the door and whispered, "I'm sorry." And for once, she didn't say who she was saying it for. It came 3 days after Mom's visit, a simple text. No emojis, no dramatics. "You're not better than me. You just got luckier. Be careful who you step on while you climb. One day you'll look down and realize you're all alone." I stared at the screen for a long time. It wasn't the threat that hit me, or the bitterness. It was the accuracy. Because in many ways, she was right. I had climbed, fast, hard, without asking permission, without waiting for someone to hand me a seat at the table. And now at the top, the air was thin. The nights were quiet. And the silence felt different now, more permanent. No Connor. No Camille. No one to call, just to say, "Can you believe what just happened?" My success had come at a cost, but I paid it willingly. Still something inside me ached, a raw edge I hadn't noticed until now. Not regret, not quite. Something murkier. I opened Camille's text again and typed, "I never needed to be better than you. I just needed to stop pretending I wasn't." I hovered over send, but didn't press it. Instead, I powered off my phone, walked outside. The air was cool, salted with the whisper of spring, a reminder that things could still grow even from ruin. I thought about everything that had been stripped away, my engagement, my family, my illusions, and everything I'd built from the ashes, $1 million company, a voice, a version of myself that no longer needed approval to exist. But I also knew something else now. That power without connection is just another kind of emptiness. And if I truly wanted to heal, not just win, I'd have to stop seeing every relationship as a battleground. That started with telling the truth. To myself. To others. Even to her. I walked back inside and sat at my desk. And I began to write something I never thought I would. An open letter to the woman who stole my fiancé, my dress, and my childhood spotlight. But also to the sister who used to braid my hair when we were little. The sister I once called my best friend. It wouldn't fix everything, but it might start something. Something real. I published the letter on my company's blog. Not a tell-all, not a takedown. Just a truth. About sisters. About shadows. About what it means to spend your life being compared to someone who was never your enemy, only your mirror. It went viral within hours. Not for the drama, but for the ache. Thousands of women wrote in the comments, "This is my story too." I'm the Camille. I'm the one who always stayed silent. It became a movement. A campaign we didn't plan. For sisters not sparring. Brands asked to collaborate. A publisher called. TEDx invited me to speak. My inbox became a confessional, strangers telling me about stolen boyfriends' birthday parties, where they were ignored parents who never noticed when they disappeared. And still Camille didn't say a word, until a week later when I opened my door and found a box on my doorstep. No note. No label. Just the dress. The dress. The wedding dress I had picked out. The one she wore. Cleaned, pressed, and folded neatly in tissue. My hands shook as I opened it, and there tucked inside the lace was a flash drive. I plugged it into my laptop. It was a video. Camille, no makeup, no filters, no violin soundtrack. Just her. "I'm not good at saying sorry," she began, "but I'm trying to be better at saying something." She looked away, then back. "I read your letter. I hated it. And then I read it again. And this time I cried." A pause. "You were never the backup plan. You were the blueprint. I copied you because I never knew how to be anything else. I just knew I couldn't let you be better than me." She smiled sad and small. "You win, but not in the way you think. You win because you found something I never have." Another pause. "Yourself." She looked like she wanted to say more. Then the video ended. I sat still for a long time, staring at the dress, thinking about everything we'd done to each other, everything we'd taken, but also what we gave. Competition, fire, identity. I didn't text her back. I didn't need to. Sometimes healing isn't a reunion. Sometimes it's a quiet truce. An understanding between two women who finally stopped fighting for the same crown. Because we'd both learned the same thing. There's room for more than one woman to rise. Even from the same house. Even from the same pain. Especially from it.